The Oscars were the other night. Big night, of course, for Michael B. Jordan. Biggest night for One Battle After Another. Ludwig Göransson wins his 3rd Academy Award. A lot of great things all around. I'm a big fan of Conan O'Brien. I didn't think he did it was a pretty flat, I think, hosting job, but whatever. It was what it was. Well, despite the fact that the Oscars have been rallying in their viewership, actually last year was the 5-year high, had big numbers last year with the Oscars. Not this year. This year, according to an article in Variety, the Oscars ratings were $17.9 million. 17.9 million viewers. 17.9 million viewers, down 9% from last year's. Now, of course, 2023, 2024, 2025 all saw increases in viewership, but this year, a drop of 9%. And now, I do want to put this in perspective, though. And that perspective is that even though it was 17.9 million viewers, if you take sports out of it and you put the Oscars we're only in March of 2026. So let's say you took this year's Oscars and put it in 2025. It would have been the #1 viewed broadcast of the year that didn't have the letters NFL in front of it. The next biggest broadcast watch thing was actually Tracker Season 2.
Nice.
With 17.4 million. But even with a 9% decline, it still is the most watched cable broadcast presentation of the year. Still the biggest. Nothing's bigger than it. That's not sports. Because the NFL is king on TV. So I started wondering about why. So I want to offer 5 reasons why we saw a decline this year, whereas last year we saw a big spike, and last couple of years we saw big spikes up. Why I think we are looking at a decline this year. To do that, we're going to jump over to the Campea classroom, and we're going to start off with this. The Oscars are held far too late. You know, I remember when being younger, the Oscars would happen, because remember, these are for movies of 2025. It was March 15th. March 15th. Imagine that the NFL season ended on January 1st and they didn't hold the Super Bowl until March 15th. It's getting just later and later. Like when I was a kid, it would be like early to mid-February. When I got a little bit older, it was like mid-February. A little bit older, it was mid to late February. And then sometime the last couple of years, they jumped it even weeks further. So by the time we're celebrating the movies of 2025, we're already past the quarter mark of the year of 2026. It's just far too long. Not to mention, I understand being the granddaddy of all the awards ceremonies. I understand Oscar's the biggest one, so you want yours to be last. I get that. I do. It's always worked before, but by the time we get to the middle of March, we're award showed out. Like, we had the Critics Award and the Golden Globes Awards and the BAFTAs and the SAGs and the WGAs and the Critics' Choice. And like, we just had, and the Emmys have happened. And that's a different thing. But by the time we get to the middle of March, it's like almost like, oh, they haven't announced Best Picture yet. So I really think the Oscars, I understand it's going to be a bit of a logistical nightmare to coordinate with other award shows and stuff like that, but they have got to get this show back into February. I mean, I get it. You need time for the end of December to hit. Then you need time for the Academy and the different branches to put together the nominees. I think the nominations for the Oscars should be out by the second week of January, final voting by the first week of February, and then you have the award ceremony February 14th, February 15th, February 16th. But that's just me, because I think doing it this late is not helping. All right. So my reason number one here, for the decline, they're just making this thing way too late. The next one is declining viewership on cable. Remember, this is still a cable broadcast event. Now, it is moving to YouTube. We're going to talk about that in a second. But 10 years ago, there were 100 American households, 100 million American households that had broadcast cable TV. 10 years ago. Today, that number is 55 million. It's a 45% drop in the number of homes that actually have broadcast cable. You are going to see then, as long as primarily that the Oscars are being broadcast on broadcast cable. Rob, I was doing a live stream before YouTube crapped it of watching the Oscars. And I cannot even begin to tell you how many people wrote in, how do I watch? How do I watch it? Like, you could also watch it on Hulu, but not everybody had Hulu. So it's like, we're not cable subscribers anymore and whatever. How do I watch it? I was actually, frankly, kind of shocked how many people were writing and saying, I don't know how to watch it. Okay, that was one. But the fact that there are 45% less cable subscribers today than 10 years ago, am I saying that's the magic bullet? No, but I'm saying it's one of the factors. I think you can't ignore that that's one of the factors. One of the other reasons I think we saw a 9% decline this year is this. Lack of blockbusters. Sinners, which did well for what Sinners was, but it was a $360 million movie. Let's not pretend it was like some record-smashing global phenom. It made $360 million. One Battle After Another made, if you're looking at the three frontrunners for Best Picture, One Battle After Another made 200, and Marty Supreme made about 180 million. Now, that is not to say that the Oscars should start nominating the blockbusters. No, screw that. The Oscars should vote for whatever they think the best movies are, period. Doesn't matter if they're big or not. But one of the repercussions of that is, if it just so happens that the best movies of the year are smaller-ish movies, then the reality is you're going to come into Oscar time and there's going to be fewer people interested because there's going to be a lot of people who have not seen Sinners, a bunch of people who have not seen One Battle, and sure as hell, a lot of people haven't seen Marty Supreme. And they were clearly the three frontrunners. So that had something to do with it. Also, next up, I'm going to say world events. There's a war going on. Don't know if you knew about that. You'd be forgiven if you forgot. But there's a war going on. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. Now, one can say that there's always something going on in the world. And you wouldn't be wrong to say that. But you don't always have Oscars when the U.S. itself is involved in a war. And there's a lot of other things going on around. Again, is that the reason? No, but I think it's a contributing factor. The next thing I'm going to say is this. Still too long. This was the 6th longest Oscars in history at 3 hours and 44 minutes. And people just know you're in for a slog when you do it. And they've got to figure out a way to get this thing. There's no excuse for not getting this thing to about 3 hours. You should be able to get this thing to about 3 hours. Now, again, let me remind everyone, here's an interesting fact. Remember a little bit ago I was saying that even with the 9% decline, it is still the number one broadcast thing on television other than sports. Nothing else gets the viewership it does in America other than sports. Here's the other thing. Rob, this is an interesting number. Even though the viewership went down 9%, social media engagement went up 42%. So everybody cared about it was the number one broadcast show of the year. So obviously everybody cares. But I mean, on social media, even more, the social media engagements on it was up 42%. So I just think there's things they got to fix here. So to go down my list again, number one, why did it go down 9% when like last 2 years, they kind of went up? One, they're holding this thing far too late in the year. Two, declining cable viewership, which is one of the reasons why they are moving this to YouTube. For those of you who didn't catch it, the Oscars, I think as of 2029.
Right.
So in there, we got 2 more Oscars that aren't going to be on YouTube. In 2029, the Oscars are going to YouTube. And honestly, it's the apps. I would even say they're waiting too long to do it. They probably should have done it in 2028, but in 2029, they're going to start broadcasting on YouTube. This year, there was just a lack of blockbusters. I would add one more, Rob. Maybe as a little bonus reason for this, let me put it on the list. As a little bonus, I would say predictability. It was a fairly predictable Oscars this year. The only one that was kind of in question was, would Michael B. Jordan or would Timothée Chalamet win? Like it be months before the Oscars, it became very clear One Battle was going to win Best Picture. Paul Thomas Anderson was going to win Best Director. Jessie Buckley is going to win Best Actress. On and on and on. There was one kind of interesting thing, but predictability. So, yeah, I would say those are some of the reasons why I think the things have gone down this year, as opposed to like the last couple of years where we saw the viewership going up. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Factor. Hey guys, you know how it is. Between the daily live show, tracking the latest box office numbers, and planning our next movie meetup in the van, my schedule gets absolutely hectic. Now, somewhere between the first warm weekend and realizing short season is getting close, eating well stops just being optional. Factor is how we stop letting a busy schedule be our excuse. They provide fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs. I had their smoky Gouda mac and shredded beef after a long editing session last week on that Spider-Man Rights video I did, and it was amazing. So whether you're looking for calorie smart options or the new Muscle Pro collection, which is perfect if you're getting back into a workout routine, they have 100 rotating weekly meals to keep things fresh. And the best part? They are always fresh, never frozen, and ready in just 2 minutes with zero prep and zero stress. I love it, and I think you will too. So head over to factormeals.com/Campea50off and use the code Campea50off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Make healthier eating easy with Factor. Anyway, Rob, I've got my reasons. Do any of these stand out to you? Do you have any others you would add to this list? What do you think?
Well, I agree with your reasons, but I think that there's more of a fundamental issue with the Oscars, in the sense that in the last 30 years, if you go back to, say, 1994, the Best Picture winner was Forrest Gump, which also was one of the highest grossing movies of the year. Everybody went and saw Forrest Gump. You could.
But you know what it should have lost to?
Were you gonna say Pulp Fiction?
No. Shawshank Redemption.
Oh yeah.
Should have lost a shot, but it was a great movie nonetheless.
But there was a lot of great. The most successful movies were also not all the time, but they were also the Oscar nominated films, and it really began to change in the 90s because Hollywood's business model changed. So the major studios stopped making movies. They had to focus on global entertainment. So they started making bigger budget, epic entertainments, whereas companies like Miramax would come in and fill in the now you could say that, yes, indeed, Warner Brothers made Sinners, and Warner Brothers did make One Battle After Another, but neither one. I mean, Sinners was kind of a mainstream hit, but it wasn't like a global phenomenon the way Forrest Gump was. So I think by knowing that, and if you look at the other front runners, I mean, Hamnet was definitely a front runner as well. Hamnet was a relatively small movie, and the business is just kind of bifurcated. Now we have these big, giant studio tentpole or rousing entertainment films, and then we've got kind of our cinema, the lower budget films that are coming from. I mean, it's interesting that Warner Brothers had both Sinners and the fact that Weapons was in there too and won an Academy Award was pretty cool, because Warner Brothers is kind of doing both, which is admirable. But if you look at One Battle After Another was not a huge box office success. I don't even think it grossed $200 million.
It wasn't a box office success at all.
Yeah, and so
I wouldn't call it a flop, but it
wasn't a big hit. And I think the problem is, the Oscars are no longer the barometer of culture that they used to be. So I think that what we need to do is figure out a way to make the Oscars, and that's why I look at the social media, Miss Jenner and Timothy Chalamet, they're a couple. So you've got the online crowd is pulling for Timothy Chalamet because of his girlfriend, maybe. And there's a whole other aspect of things that are going on. And the way social media has been used with the Oscars, I think that if they have, like people talk about second screen stuff for movies, there should be second screen stuff for the Oscars. There should be a lot more engagement to make not just the show, but have stuff going on while the show's happening that you can engage across various social media platforms, because it's a little stodgy in its format. Really hasn't changed in 50 years, other than lack of musical numbers. But the way they did the musical numbers this year, those are both great.
They were wins. Yeah,
that
was a win on their part.
And you know what they did? Seeing the Sinners musical number, the way they shot it, you know, getting in the camera and that was really clever. And I'd never seen, you know, normally it's very stately. People sing the song, even like Billie Eilish, you know, Phineas is playing and she's singing No Time to Die, or the song from, but it was the two of them, you know, it wasn't exactly, but what they did with Sinners and K-Pop Demon Hunters was a really interesting, unique way to do something. Instead of being like, oh, it's I sat down with that Sinners thing and I'm like, well, what's this? And I was riveted. And I think that they need to figure out ways to do that. They need to have a component of online engagement, not just make it somehow participatory. I don't know how that works. No, but I don't mean in the show itself,
Okay.
but like there's a whole extra added element of participation that's going on in online in whatever categories. I don't know how that works, but they've got to do something more to engage people, and they've got to do more leading up to the Oscars. Like, we cover the Oscars, but the rest of the population doesn't care if you're not studying movies per se, but they could do more to promote the Oscars in unique ways on social media, up into the in ways they haven't before. Like, make some, how many Oscar things have you seen this year? And, you know, stuff like where you could lead up to it and make social media a component. I don't know how that would work.
I will say this, though. Next year's Oscars are probably going to be the biggest viewership they've had in a decade.
Ever.
Because you're going to have Project Hail Mary. You're going to have Odyssey. You're going to have Dune 3. These are all going to be huge. These are all films that are going to be nominated for Best Picture. And they're all going to be big box office.
And they all appeal to the younger audience as well.
More four quadrant. But again, they're going to get voted because they're going to be the best films, not because of anything. So I think next year you're going to see much, much, much bigger numbers.
Yep. I do too.
Hopefully there's not a war going on at the time and all that kind of stuff.
Hopefully we're still here.
Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? After a couple of years of successive years of the viewership going up at the Oscars, this year we had 9% decline from last year. I gave some reasons as to why I thought that might have been. Would you add any to that? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.